Well, this coming weekend is Memorial Day weekend. So what better time to talk about the VA's new rules when it comes to disability compensation. And just when you think things couldn't get any worse, here we are. Welcome to the Mental Health Janitors, where we help you clean up the mess in your head. I'm your host, Sgt Q, and with me as always, Doc Jess.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Jess, and I have to tell you, those peptides that we talked about last week or a couple weeks ago, whenever we did it, that episode, I went and hiked in Cottrell, and I feel great. My recovery time was so fast. I don't know if I would have been able to do that hike and be super sore. And so you're looking great, gotten healthier, you've lost some weight.
Yeah.
How are those peptides working for you?
Yeah, they're working so great for me. They've been life-changing for me. It's more so the rest recovery stacks and the mitochondria rebuilding. And that's just those cells in your body that are the powerhouse, they call them, that are just turn oxygen and food into energy. And like we talked about a few weeks ago, I don't want to just be redundant, but I just did so much damage to my body while in the army and then trying to recover from war that it's just gone in and started rebuilding my health on a cellular level as I've come alongside and put in all the work that I could do building those foundations. And so it's like working simultaneously together to get some really great results. And so because my mitochondria is working more efficiently, my metabolism is starting to work more efficiently. And then my recovery from working really hard at Pilates, I wake up the next day ready to go again instead of sore, like, oh, I don't want to go again. That soreness plays a big role. And I hardly get sore anymore because I'm building up those muscles and that endurance. But I'm sleeping better than I have in 20 years. It's just helping so much in some ways.
Awesome. So if you guys don't know about peptides, check out our last episode. It's on there, tell you all about it, and then go talk to your doctor. Or there's providers that
or don't, because they're not going to know anything about it.
That's true. Your doctor's doing that.
I have 7 mental health clients that I'm seeing right now who are on a GLP peptide, and their doctors have prescribed it for them, and they're getting all these nasty negative side effects, and their doctor's done none of the work or research to help them negate those side effects. So every single one of these 7 clients that I've talked to that are on these peptides are nauseous, and they're not eating at all, and they're looking terrible because they're losing so much muscle because they can barely eat. And I say, has your doctor recommended a methylated multivitamin, a digestive enzyme, magnesium, electrolytes, proper hydration? Are you getting at least 90 grams of protein? So they have no idea any of that needed to be happening. And so I'm actually just disgusted, and my faith in Western medicine has dropped even more than it already has. So yes, ethically and legally, we have to say consult appropriate medical professional when it comes to peptide use, and your family care doctor or your primary care doctor is not going to know anything about it. And they have been programmed and educated in just one area that they're not even going to.
Because they get paid for that. Because if you guys don't know, pharmaceutical reps come in and they say, hey, here's all these drugs that you should recommend. And they recommend it because those are the ones that are approved by insurance. And so that's how the doctor gets paid. So it really is this nefarious system that's set up. And you don't have to believe me.
No.
We can go deep into conspiracy theories if you want, and we can start talking about the AMA, the American Medical Association, and how in its infancy, when it was created, its whole job was to run people out of being homeopaths or rural doctors. And that was their whole job, is to get all those people out so the pharmaceutical companies could basically run the show, run our healthcare. You don't have to believe me. Look at the history of the AMA. They are a nefarious organization, and they haven't changed. They were big-time gangsters that would literally burn down people's labs and homes and get them arrested and put them in jail because they contradicted what the pharmaceutical companies were pushing, which is just pills and medication, because that's what made money. Therapies don't make money. Cures don't make money. Treatments make money. When was the last time we cured anything? Polio, back in the 40s. So that's some cured anything. Everything else has been a treatment. Why? Because there's no money in the cure, there's money in the treatment. Which leads us right into
disability in the VA.
Or disability and the VA.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything, so educate me.
Listen, I've had a horrible experience at the VA. Some people love it. I had a horrible experience. I tried to get help. They said, you don't have a disability rating, so we can't help you. I said, well, wait a minute. We had a contract. You have to help. So, okay, we'll help you, but you have to pay out of pocket. So I had to pay out of pocket for all my treatment as I was trying to get a disability rating so I could get treated at the VA system, which is totally crap scenario. And I said, I'm not paying you guys because there's a contract that I had with you. I said, I will go and fight and you will take care of me when I come back if I'm injured. And they don't want to hold up on their individual. So I didn't pay. Well, guess what happens? Income tax time comes. And they took my entire income tax to pay back the VA for the treatment that I was getting. This put me way behind because I was living paycheck to paycheck back then. I needed that money. I ended up losing my home and becoming homeless. Why? Because the VA and their bureaucratic bullshit led me to become homeless. Because they wouldn't treat me, and then they made me pay out of pocket, and then they stole my money. That's exactly what happened. I got the receipts. So come at me, bro, because I got the receipts. That's why I ate the VA system. And then when I did, though, they just wanted to push all this medication on me.
That's all they wanted.
That made me feel worse than the actual PTSD symptoms. They never really helped me. That's where I started to study and learn about the brain on my own. Because I knew that there was truth there, but the VA was not giving it. 10 years ago, we had this high influx of veterans committing suicide in the VA parking lot. Why? Just like me, they're going there, they're trying to get help, and they're being told no. They're being told that they should be fine. And guys, there was an epidemic of people committing suicide in the parking lot and in the parking garage of VA hospitals across the nation. So then they said, okay, well, we're going to make it now an automatic qualifier, which means that you don't need a disability rating anymore to get help with the VA. It was like, fine, it only took you 15 years, but you figured it out. So they did that, and they started to change the rules to help guys get treatment. And still, there's a huge backlog of people who need help. So there's this huge stopgap. There's this time where they weren't helping anyway, and it all backed up. And now there's this huge influx of people that need help, and they're getting help, but now it's costing the VA system a lot of money. And it's because they hadn't been doing the work they needed to do for the past 2 decades, and now they're having to do it all at once. So it's messing with their budgets. So here we go. That's the setup. That's where we're at. Happy freaking Memorial Day. Okay, here we go. Medication-based ratings is what this is called now. This is called medication-based ratings. The major rule change requires the VA medical examiner to base a disability rating on how well a veteran functions while on medication, rather than the severity of the unmedicated underlying condition. If the medication lowers your symptoms, your compensation will be tied to the lower level of functional impairment. The rule applies to all body systems. All body systems. I want to make that clear. This isn't just mental health. All body systems. So let's think about that. You lose both your legs. You're double amputee. Should be 100% disability rating, right? You're
For the rest of your life.
right. But they're saying, oh, no. We gave you a wheelchair. Now you can get around. You're not 100% anymore. You're mobile. We're going to reduce that down to 50% or whatever they decide. Because all body systems, this is called the medical-based rating. What it does is it evaluates you on the severity of your condition once medicated, not the underlying condition, but once medicated. This means that you're going to get a lower payout if they can give you a medication and say that it reduced your symptoms. So that means you're going to be on medication for the rest of your life, because they're not going to, if you go off medication, they're not going to bump you back up. They're just going to say, no, you have to stay medicated or probably lose all your benefits. So you will face lower compensation simply for taking prescribed medication for your health. Now, here's the kicker.
Oh my gosh, it gets worse.
Wow. This is the caveat right here. Hank said, okay, so what is this like in the regular federal disabilities? Does this align with federal guidelines for how we rate all other disabilities on the federal level? No, this does not align with how federal programs handle disability. Actually, this has sparked a massive backlash for that very reason. While the VA attempts to formalize this rule as of February 2026 due to combat rising claim backlogs, like I just said, they didn't do their job for 2 decades. Now they're having to do it. And they're saying, oh, we're in trouble because we don't have enough money for this. So now they're trying to figure out ways to cut the money going to veterans who earned it. The Secretary, Doug Collins, swiftly announced the department would not enforce the rule following this intense pressure from lawmakers, veterans, and my favorite people, the disabled American veterans. So because of one guy, Doug Collins, he's the new VA secretary. They pushed this rule through, lawmakers pushed this through to save money on the budget. And there was such an intense backlash from the VA or from veterans, and specifically the disabled American veterans, who's helping me get my claim, the DAV. These guys stood up, veterans stood up. But that's what they were trying to push on all of us.
Why did you tell me that at the beginning? Oh my gosh. I'm over here sweating.
Because listen, Jess,
So angry.
so I've been angry about this for months, since February.
That's why I don't watch the news anymore.
This is what they've been pushing.
Wow.
And they got it approved, and it was supposed to go, this is what was going in Q2. This is what was happening. And one guy said, I don't care. I'm not doing that. So it's still up in the air,
Yeah.
right? So right now there's kind of a stay of execution on the bill. But that's what they want to push. That's what they're trying to put forward. That's what the VA system is putting forward to be able to compensate for them not doing their job for the past 2 decades.
Yeah.
That's what these bureaucrats are doing. So you can see how guys like me slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
Because it's stuff like this. Luckily, honestly, I think thank you to social media. The social media puts this in the forefront.
Yeah.
More people are made aware, more people start to push against this.
Petition.
And then we have great organizations like the Disabled American Veterans who are pushing this thing forward. It clashes with the Social Security standards. That's what they're using.
Yeah.
Because they said, no, you can't
It's unconstitutional.
special rules for veterans to give them less. It's in direct conflict of established case law. But that's what they were trying to push. These are the types of things that we have to deal with as veterans. And on a much broader scale, if you're not a veteran, this is what socialized medicine looks like. Because that's what the VA is. It's considered socialized medicine. And people think it's so great, like, oh, Canada has such a great healthcare system, until you talk to a Canadian.
Yep.
And you realize very quickly it is not great. You talk to a veteran, you realize very quickly it's not great. These are the types of things that you have to deal with. And just like you, Jess, you felt some anxiety. You felt angry. Like, what? I'm being victimized again?
When we talk about the amounts of suicides that happen in the parking lot of the VA, I resonate with that. Dude, I hate going to the VA. I have so much extended trauma surrounding the VA. I can't even tell. And it's not just that the VA wasn't doing their jobs on like the bookkeeping back end. It's the amount of malpractice and terrible care I've gotten when I go is demoralizing. And it's not just a couple times. It's 8 out of 10 experiences I've had over the last 20 years have been horrific. Not just bad, terrible. And I also have to play the devil's advocate here, because I've been a part of social media groups that are there to support or help people with their claims. And I see way too much, help me, how do I get 100%? Help me, how do I get 100%? That's not the right question to ask. Well, do you need 100%? Why is every single veteran's main goal now to get 100%? 100% disability is equal to 100% disability. That it means I am disabled 100% because of something that happened to me while I was in the military. When I joined the military, I didn't join thinking, I hope I get injured so I can get paid the rest of my life. I didn't join the military. I joined saying, I'm going to do my couple years and do my service to the military and hopefully get out and have, a really good work ethic and resume built and some good quality work ethic and whatever it was. And the tides turned for my story, and I ended up doing back-to-back deployments and getting injured and seeing a lot of war and things that did affect me and that will affect me for the rest of my life. Yes. And that's not everybody's story. Not every single person who does their time in the military needs 100% disability, but I see it everywhere. So I am going to play that devil's advocate because it took me so long to get the help that I needed because so many people are going in trying to get this 100%. I'm going to keep going till I get this 100%. Can you keep a job? Just because you served your country and did some hard things for a couple of years doesn't equivalent to you get disability retirement for the rest of your life. It doesn't mean that either. And so sure, there's probably a much smaller percentage of people out there that are doing that, but it's a much higher percentage than I would like to admit because I see it personally all the time.
I see people having to fight tooth and nail for any type of compensation. And I think that's what drives people to want to fight even harder because they're getting pushed into that corner. For me, this is what I had to do. Legitimately what I had to do. I had to DAV help me and they got me into the system. Mm-hmm. And when they rated me, I got rated as 0%. But at least that's a rating, which gave me a rating, which then gave me legal standing to get help at the VA. Even if it was a 0%. Before that, I had no rating, so I couldn't get anything. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so that's one of the rule changes that had happened. So you guys hear me say always, thanks, Obama, right? It's just kind of a joke. But really, thanks, Obama. Really, true, honestly, from my heart, thank you. Because I wrote President Obama a letter every single week for over a year with my original claim and then a cover letter saying, hey, this is where I'm at now. This is where every single week I sent this. Every single week I sent this to the White House. And I finally got a response. And it wasn't from Obama, but from the cabinet. It said, hey, look, we understand what you're going through. This is something that a lot of veterans are going through. So we're going to try this as a pilot program. What we're going to do, because the VA, your doctor says that you need help. The VA administration says that you don't. So it's the VA fighting with each other. So this is what we're going to do. If you agree to go see an outside doctor outside of the VA, they're going to hire a civilian doctor to read through your file and interview you for 2 hours. And whatever he says that you deserve, the VA is agreed to say to agree to that, and you have to agree to that. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. I'm fine with it. Let me be seen by a civilian doctor who can read through all my file, read through all my case notes, and then interview me and ask me questions for 2 hours. Now, here's what happened. I went and did that. That was so nerve-wracking.
Nerve-wracking.
To go to it several times. To go and do that, right? And so I was one of the first in this pilot program to do that when they were trying to establish a precedence for it. Mm-hmm. And so there's all kinds of paperwork I had to sign.
Was it at the LNI type office? Civilian doctor?
Yeah, it was a civilian. It was in Federal Way. It was just it was in a strip mall. Guy had an office. There were a bunch of other, almost like a shared office space, right? Like you had a room maybe a little bit bigger than this. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of split into like the front office and back office there, right? So front office, there was nobody in there, right? And so it was just him. And then I went to the back office and talked to me, to ask me questions for a couple hours. It was actually so low key, so low stress. Not like it is at the VA system, where you feel like you're being interrogated. It wasn't like that at all. It was actually really chill. But I had so much anxiety about it, about going in and doing this. And I just had a regular conversation with this guy. 2 hours passed. And I was like, okay. He's like, all right, that's it. It's like, oh, file my stuff. Didn't tell me anything, right? Files it, does whatever he does. And I get an award letter back, I don't know, 3-4 weeks later. They rated me at 100%. I was like, whoa. Now, here's the thing that I wasn't prepared for. Like, I was like, I need help. Obviously, I'm struggling. I need help. I never thought I was going to get 100%. Like, it just didn't even cross my mind. But when it did, I don't feel like I'm 100%. Like, what does that mean for me? Who am I now? So that added a whole other psychological component to this complex issue that I was dealing with.
Wow.
You know, and what I learned was that the VA system is awful. And I started researching this stuff on my own, learning about the brain, stuff that, and I have to go to the counselor now, right? I have to go to the VA. I have to do these things to play the game. And so when I'm going there, I'm interrogating them. I'm asking them questions like, why aren't we doing this? Hey, have you heard of microdosing psilocybin to be able to help people reset their neurological system? Oh, no. So why aren't we looking into this? What about this treatment? What about this? And I'm asking them all these questions that they have no idea how to answer, by the way.
No idea.
No clue how to answer.
Because they're all interns. Because it's a researching, learning facility.
Yeah. And so that was my experience with the VA. I really, for me to get help, I had to take control of my mental health and said, I'm not taking that medication because it does this and this. And I said, hey man, you gave me this medication to sleep. This is a blood pressure medication. So it lowers my heart rate so I don't dream at night. But then I end up in this weird mental state after a few months of not dreaming because my brain's not processing properly. And then when I wake up and I have to get up in the morning, my blood pressure is so low that I'm having to crawl into the bathroom because I'm so dizzy. Like, this is no way to live. Why were you giving me a blood pressure medication? Well, we found that it helps with nightmare symptoms. I'm like, yeah, but the daytime symptoms are far worse. So let's find another option. So I was having to go and research these things and tell them, like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And I'm just telling you, this is the medication that I'm taking. And this is what I'm going to do. And you can track it. And that's what I started doing.
Yeah. You have to advocate for yourself.
100%.
Push the VA. And it's so interesting because my experience with that civilian doctor was a more of like one of those like medical clinics that people go to for L&I claims and things like that. You know, this doctor who's retired, because it's a lot of retired doctors that come back just to do it for a little bit of extra money. And he's in his 60s. And at this point, I'm in my late 20s. And he's just hitting on me the whole time, telling me how I look like his high school sweetheart and he misses her so much. And am I sure I'm not related to her? Okay. Then he gets into my chart and he's looking at all the things that are in my military chart of IEDs I was in, the frontline rotations that I had to do, that I was a combat medic, and asking that checklist of what was the worst thing you saw, who was the closest one to you that you lost. And after this 45 minutes of this checklist, I'm obviously in a pretty raw state. And he says, yeah, well, shit happens. You got to learn how to get over it. Thanks. It was nice meeting you. And send me on my way. I don't know if he was upset because I closed off because he was being unprofessional or so. I don't know what happened, but he took away. So I was diagnosed with migraines in AIT. I had these crazy, I'd never had headaches before like this to this level. And so I had to go to sick call or whatever a couple times. And they ended up diagnosing me with these migraines. And so I didn't even the military diagnosed me with migraines. And then after my traumatic brain injury, I got cluster headaches as well. Yeah. And so instead of adding cluster headaches, he took away my migraine diagnosis and replaced it with cluster. So I lost disability rating from that. Wow. You wouldn't believe the things that this man did. And so I had to go in and appeal. And then that took 3 years. And then it was, I think they came out to be like $146,000 that I lost.
Yeah. See, and that's why veterans fight so hard for 100%, is because they push people to that point. Yeah. We're like, I'm going for it.
Yeah. And I never was going for it. I just was I just want the help that I need. And I want the resources to not have to go to the VA to get it. I want to try acupuncture. I want to try massage. I want to try other things to help regulate my nervous system than all this medication that you're trying to shove down my throat.
I get zero care of it. Zero. Because I have such a hard heart toward them. Just the way I was treated, how things went down. And I had to because I didn't have any medical insurance back then. But now that I have a business, I pay for my own medical insurance. I'm happy to pay out in town, civilian doctor to take care of me, who is a veteran himself, than to go to the VA and deal with that whole system where I feel like I'm being scrutinized for every single thing, where I feel like I have to prove every single thing, every single time to every single new person that picks up my chart. I'm so sick of that system. So I don't use it. I haven't used it in over a decade. I just don't do it.
That's what I used for my cervical surgery, just because it's $150,000 surgery. And it was from an IED and an injury from 20 years ago. And it was very obvious in my MRI. The doctor said, you were in some kind of major accident about 20 years ago. And I was like, literally 20 years ago this month, I was on a fun boy. Yes, it was crazy how we could see the degeneration. And anyways, the surgery needed to be done more emergently because of how much it was kind of that my herniated discs were protruding into my spinal cord. So it was a small fall could have paralyzed me. The waiting list for that surgery at the VA was a couple months, and they were like, we need to get you in sooner. So they outsourced me to Harborview, which was a huge bonus because I got the best neurosurgeon I could ever ask for. He was so great. And I mean, you can't even see hardly my scar. He did it right on my wrinkle line. And it was just an incredible experience because I went through the civilian hospital, which was a huge blessing. But I try to opt for as much civilian care as I can because now they have some systems set up where if you have to wait more than 30 days for something at the VA, they'll outsource you if you live far enough away, and I do. So I am able to get a little bit of care outside of the VA now.
That's why there's so many of these NGOs, non-government organizations that pop up to help us because the government system is so terrible. It really is. It is awful. And I could tell you horror story after horror story about this place. I didn't have to go. I had an opportunity to go and see a veteran who had had a stroke. His name is Brian Suits. So Brian Suits is a local radio host. He had the Brian Suits show for many, many years. He did a lot of political and military commentary. He was on Cairo for a long time. Then he went to AM radio. But he's been kind of a mainstay in Seattle when it comes to a conservative commentary on the political and the historical implications of what we're dealing with today. A couple of years ago, well, I guess it wasn't a couple. This was about 9-10 months ago. He had a stroke, and it caused some major issues. And so some people at the VA didn't know me. These different these nonprofits reached out to me and said, "Hey, there's this guy. You could really use some support. You're the chaplain for the Seahawks Task Force 12." So I went out there and met with them and talked with them. But I tell you what, driving into that for the first time in decades, I sat in my car and I was just like, breathe, using all of my techniques, Jess, like gritting my teeth, preparing myself for 10 minutes to go in there and see him. And I got in there and talked to him, and he was so happy to see somebody. Because the guy doesn't have any family. Right? He's not married. His daughter has been given parental custody to his sister because he can't incapacitate it. And he's probably then ended up going to an assisted living facility. And the only reason I did it is there was a veteran in there who needed some support. Otherwise, I would not have gone. But that's how bad that place is for me. Well, let's talk about something a little bit better. Let's talk about what we're going to be doing this weekend, Jess.
Yeah. Got my hoodie on. Operation Restore Hope.
Yes.
2026. We travel with a bunch of veterans and their support person down to San Diego, where YWAM Baja, so right there in Tijuana, Mexico, they come over and they pick us up and they take us across the border right there in their buses and their vans, and we set up shop. YWAM is amazing. They give us a day early because they know and love Sgt Q so much and Q missions and the work that he does, that we get to go there a whole day early so that we can set up classroom work for our veterans and their support person. And we do a whole day of just psychoeducation and tools and support for these veterans and their support person to learn about trauma, learn about the body, learn about the brain, learn about neuroscience, learn about how, oh, what you're dealing with is actual normal, because you can look around the room and be like, oh, I'm not the only one. And it's just that shared experience that is so empowering. And then we get tasked with our build group that night, and we get a debrief, and we get to be introduced to the family that we're going to go out and serve and build a home for. And we can eat great food, authentic Mexican food. We meet a ton of great people, and then we wake up crack of dawn the next morning and head out to the build site. We start building a house for a homeless family. But the really cool thing about this organization is with Q Missions, we get to not only provide this home for a homeless family, but we actually build in honor every year of a fallen veteran. And so a couple of years ago, 2019, we got to build for a buddy of mine that I lost in Iraq, June 2005.
Yes.
A couple months before we made it home, we lost him as a medic. And I was able to bring his mom and his stepdad with us to build in honor of their son. And it had been almost decades since they lost him. And so it was so healing for them to see that their son's legacy and his honor was there to give this family a home, and these veterans are getting healed all around them. It's a really beautiful opportunity for the family. And so this year I get the privilege again to build for another fallen soldier that I was deployed with too. We get to bring his sister and build in honor of her brother that we lost when I was deployed. So it's going to be epic.
Q Missions, we put on what we call Operation Restore Hope. This is a weekend retreat for veterans. What it does is it teaches them about the brain-body connection, how trauma experiences affect the neural connections in your brain, and small daily tasks that you can do to recover from that. That means that they're going to have better mental health outcomes. They're going to build stronger and better relationships, and they're going to be more successful in their life post this trip. For many, this is the very first step they've taken in their healing journey. And it's one that they will never forget. Jess is a shining example of that.
Yeah.
This wasn't the thing that solved all her problems, but this was the first step to introduce her to a new way of thinking, what help could look like, and what the outcomes could possibly be. Mm-hmm. Since then, she has invested thousands of dollars and many, many, many years of her life into not only building her resilience, but getting the education to help other people do the exact same thing. So it's been really cool for me to watch you grow in this process, that you came as a participant a couple of times, and now you're coming back as an instructor to teach. For me, that's what it's all about. Because if I know how to do it, great. If I can teach somebody else, even better. But if I can inspire greatness in other people, where they now lead the charge and begin building and teaching other people how to do this thing, that's the win. For me, that's the absolute win.
Yeah, so I got back, from Iraq in 2005. And then I didn't even get diagnosed with PTSD until 2007. Even though there was a ton of signs and symptoms leading to it, it was still pretty new. I mean, it's always been around, but it was in 2006, 2007, it was still not really talked about as much. And when I finally got diagnosed, I would kind of hit rock bottom and go in and try to get some help from the VA, because that's all I had at the time. And it would be an awful situation or awful experience, and I would feel worse. And so I would just think, well, counseling is just not for me. And then 2-3 years would go by and I'd hit rock bottom again. I would try again. And it was just this cycle that happened. And so I swore off the VA, I swore off counseling, as I'm never going to get better. And so 2005, from when I got back to 2015, were those ups and downs, right? And then I had my second daughter in 2015, and my oldest, who was 6 at the time, she had been showing some patterns of secondary PTSD. Loud noises she would cover her ears, things like that. She wasn't on the spectrum or anything like that. So it was definitely things she had been watching me do, and she picked up on them. And I was probably at my rock bottom at this point in my life, and one of my rock bottoms. And a video was shown to me recently of me on that first build talking about how anxious I was, how broken I was, how broken my husband was, how he doesn't know how to help me, and how he feels lost. And passing that key around that first year, and it dawning on me for the first time, it was the first year since 2005 on Memorial Day weekend that I wasn't blackout drunk. And it's because, Memorial Day weekend means something different for everybody. For some, it just means a 4-day weekend, you get barbecue. Great. I'm so happy for you that that's what it is to you. Genuinely, I wish that's what it was for me. For other people, they lost a family member. And so they have to remember every single year on top of all the other times that they remember. And then there's people like us that we have to stay away from social media because it's just a constant reminder of all the people that we lost. And then all their families that we are grieving with still. And then we have to see the people that are barbecuing and having a great time. And we have to struggle with that bitterness of like, oh, if they only knew, but I don't want them to know. And it doesn't matter how many years go by or how healthy I get, it's always going to suck. I'm always going to remember the guys that gave their lives for me, for all of you guys, and the ones that gave their lives when it got back because it was just too hard to live. Memorial Day weekend's a rough weekend, and it always has been for me. And so in 2016, when I found a new purpose for Memorial Day weekend, it's just life-changing for me. And
things are real here.
yeah,
We talk about real issues. These are things that deeply affect us and that we've healed from and that we're still healing.
Yeah.
And that's why we do the work that we do, because we know what it's like on both sides. We try to get everybody, as many as we can, to this side.
I have a disconnect for crying, and it has been a long time since I've cried. So it's always just refreshing for me to realize that I'm a human being and I cry. It's a beautiful thing. It's not a bitterness anymore or a resentment. It's like a release of like, I'm human. I lost a lot of people that I cared about. People are still hurting, and I'm here, and I want to honor their lives with my life, which is why I had to walk through those doors when the Lord opened them for me to go back to school to be a counselor. But it was the Operation Restore Hope 2016 that sent me on that journey. So
now you're giving back.
yeah.
You're coming out as an instructor to help the next generation.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Oh, it's really cool.
The thing I love about tears is that we're the only creature that cries from emotion. Tears is a uniquely human expression.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is it fires off our mirror neurons in other people. And it tells people that that individual needs a little extra support without saying a word. So it's a positive neurological feedback loop that God created specifically for humans. We're the only ones that experience this.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you suck it up and don't cry, you're disrupting the system that God created for us to support one. All right, well, we'd like to do 3 things here on the Mental Health Janitors. We'd like to educate, empower, and encourage you on your mental health journey. So here's the thing. This year's trip is booked out, but next year's is going to open up next weekend. So if you're listening to this and you are a veteran, or you're a friend or family member of a veteran, and you want to get on next year's trip, we're going to have a link right here in the comments. You can click on it and you can sign up for the trip. If this moved you and you want to support what we do, it's 100% nonprofit. So it's 100%. All the money goes to veterans programs to take veterans on this trip. It costs about $2,500 per veteran looking through this program. And we couldn't do it without donors who support the work that we're doing. We don't get paid. Nobody at Q Missions gets paid for anything. I'm the executive director, and I don't even take a dime. All the money goes to help veterans go through this program, which absolutely changes lives. So if you want to write a check today, you can do that as well. Right on our website, you can make a donation and make a difference in a veteran's life. For the Mental Health Janitors, I'm Sgt Q.
I'm Doc Jess.
And we're out.